Mazoyer there in the newsroom. 42 years ago today in Tripoli, a 27-year-old army colonel toppled Libya's aging king. Today, Muammar Gaddafi is out. He's not quite yet gone from hiding. He's been speaking again on Syrian television, but he's definitely out. And this Thursday, the leaders of Libya's National Transitional Council getting the red carpet treatment in Paris in what some have dubbed even a victory conference. Organizers insist the focus is on aid and preventing the mistakes made in post-Saddam Hussein Iraq. But critics argue it's also about divvying up the spoils of war between a sweeping coalition that includes everything from scholars to former Gaddafi ministers and Islamist radicals. The spoils of war in the case of Libya also means oil will tally the foreign powers that stand to gain from their active support in pushing out Gaddafi. Today in the France 24 debate, Libya after Gaddafi, and we're talking about it with Waheed Bershan of the National Transitional Council, who's here in Paris. Thanks for being with us.
Sure.
Also with us, Libya's former energy minister, Fatih Ben-Shatwan, now a university professor. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
A former high-ranking official at the French Defense Ministry, Pierre Conessa, now teaches at France's, what do I pitch here? You both teach at the prestigious ENA, the National Administration School, and Sciences Po, the Political Science Institute. Pierre Conessa, welcome again, and let's welcome back again Francis Perrin, editorial manager at Arab Oil and Gas. Thank you. And from London, Alexis Krau, who's part of the Libyan working group at the London-based think tank Chatham House. Welcome to the show. And we want to thank the viewers as well. Your comments are always appreciated on the France 24 Debate Facebook page. And if those comments fit in 140 characters or less, you can also catch us on Twitter, our handle at FrancoisF24. Before we talk about that conference and that's wrapping up in Paris, let's talk about this anniversary. 42 years. We can perhaps see images of Colonel Gaddafi circa 1970. This is on the first anniversary of the coup against King Idris. Let me begin with you, Fatih Ben-Shatwan. Do you remember 1969 and September the 1st, where you were?
Yeah, just like today. I think I was a student in the secondary school in the second year. I remember it very well. And then when they started the revolution, the people, they don't know who's behind this revolution, of course, but there's a lot of problem before in the kingdom. There's a lot of, so people, most of them, they were happy to have a change in Libya. But if you know what's happened now, they won't be happy at all.
Waheed Bershan, do you remember the day?
I sure do. I was about 10 years old. And those days were exciting days, for sure. There was a national or a pan-Arab fervor those days, and everybody wants to participate in that perspective. And there was time for change. But like Dr. Shatwan said, I think we regret those days.
42 years. Most of your countrymen have never known anybody other than Colonel Gaddafi in power.
As a matter of fact, that's correct. And I think, as a matter of fact, people are still going through this. That environment. It's very, very difficult to take it to get out of it. People live most of their lives knowing this man, and it is difficult to leave that legacy.
How much of a problem is it the fact that he's still at large? We mentioned at the outset how it was 8 months after the fall of Saddam Hussein that he was actually captured, and his specter loomed over Iraq. Is it going to be the same thing if Muammar Gaddafi stays at large?
Oh, definitely. I think we need to close that chapter. We need to close it for sure. I think, as a matter of fact, some of the revolutionaries were telling me they went to some of the hospitals, and some of the injured were telling the revolutionaries, "Oh, he's coming back. We're waiting for him." So there are people, a lot of people are still not quite gotten out of their mind, and I think having him out there will definitely play a destabilizing factor into Libya. We need to find him. We need to get him.
Alexis Krau, what's your assessment on that? Are there a lot of people in Libya who still support Muammar Gaddafi?
Well, it seems to me that, you have an ever-decreasing loyalist stance militarily, both militarily and, of course, politically. It seems that Gaddafi himself misjudged the loyalty of those around him, apart from his sons. And it seems like what's going on in Sirte is going on fighting for fighting's sake. But I think There's a sense here in London that whilst there is a great need, obviously, for the Libyan people to bring justice to around Gaddafi and those around him, I think there's a great need also to focus on the post-Gaddafi Libya in the sense of stabilization and infrastructure rebuilding, and really focusing less on the manhunt and learning from the mistakes, for example, of Saddam Hussein.
And among those mistakes, of course, and we're going to talk about it now, is the question of making sure there is no power vacuum. We can look at the front page of the International Herald Tribune, reporting on how Tripoli today is split up with between fighters from various cities. And we have a situation, Pierre Conessa, where the West insists there won't be any foreign troops sent into Libya. Can Libyans sort it out by themselves?
Well, I don't know. I think that there are two different points regarding the Iraqi situation and the Libyan situation. The first point is that the Saddam Hussein regime was very strong. I mean, he was implementing a lot of security forces and administration who were completely controlling the situation and the population. And it was quite different in Libya, as far as I know, which means that now the international community has to help the Libyan to build an administration, not rebuild, build an administration. And the second point is that what about the security situation today regarding the lot of regarding the armaments which are now circulating in the population, which means that if there is no agreement between the different parts of the fifths, that the Herald Tribune was talking about, it could be a civil war.
Waheed Bershan, what's the likelihood of it becoming a civil war?
At this point, we don't see it. I mean, there's no question about it. There's vacuum. There are a lot of players, but one of the things that we noticed in terms of the rebels dealing with the populations and the way they're managing things, I think so far it's been positive. I'm responsible for Girian, for example. What we found.
Tell us where that is.
Girian is the largest city in the mountains, right south of Tripoli, which is obviously, as you know, all the rebels came down from, and we're training and so on. So it was a very, very strategic place. The thing about what we found when we went to Girian is that we found people already constituting local councils, small ones, from the ground up, and they were managing their affairs. So the good things about it, they were not waiting for the state to provide them with any structure. So, and they knew there will be a vacuum instinctively. There was no one told them anything, and they were playing that role. When I came to Girian, right now we're going through some kind of initial kind of a reformation of my position by these local councils. So we found that they were managing affairs, they were taking security in their hands, no issues whatsoever that we saw. From that perspective, you could see that people looking for governance, not really looking for ideology or any particular approach, or any particular direction, political directions. They're just looking to sustain themselves. I think they're waiting in a month or 2 months, whatever, of the TNC or the political side of Libya to start firming themselves.
Fadi Ben Shadwan, when the conflict broke out back in February, for those of us who don't know Libya well at all, we were told, watch out. There's all these different tribes in Libya. They're all going to be at each other's throats. Mm-hmm. Then we heard a version of events saying, wait a minute, today 90% of Libyans live in cities. That's the past. Mm-hmm. Which is the real Libya?
Well, a lot of people, they don't consider the situation in Libya in the real way, because people thinking that there's two groups of Libyans, one against the other, and this is a very big mistake. People say rebels sometimes for the revolutionaries. They are not rebels and not revolutionaries. They are the people of Libya. All the uprising from the people of Libya. Only the people of Libya facing an armed force, which is very, very near to Gaddafi. So we're not frightened too much about security because all the Libyan going, through this situation, all of them, they are uprising. They are against only a family with armed force. So this is to understand this situation very well. Now you know what's going to happen.
Alexis Crowe, the Libyan Working Group, is that perhaps a rosy picture that we've just been painted, or inside it, do you agree?
Well, perhaps, Rosie, but I think there's a great point that's made in the Herald Tribune article with regard to this quote about the blood of the martyrs. And there's a real sense in the West, I think, and obviously with the TNC and inside Libya, that those exiled from the Gaddafi regime or that have chosen to exile themselves from the regime, who've gone to different points in Washington, in Paris, and in London, are now coming back to help with regard to the political reconstruction on the ground, and are being represented in meetings such as in Qatar and in Paris. And Kirkpatrick raises the point of whether or not actually these people will be received with welcome hands back into the militias and those who have been fighting on the ground in Libya. So there's a real concern here, actually, that the political momentum won't come back to match the military momentum which has reached Tripoli.
Well, we have an example of what you're describing on our set. Wahid Bershan, you were saying your family's been back in Chicago. You've been working in Qatar. How were you welcomed when you returned?
I'm very positively. As a matter of fact, I haven't been in Libya for 35 years. So
and people take orders from you?
You know what I did? I mean, this is something, because I was concerned about the same issues. I put myself and said, listen, you've got to rethink of my position if you want me to continue on. So I asked them, and this Sunday they will have some kind of reaffirmation, if you will, of my position. With all the local councils, they're going to meet in a conference, and they're going to say yes to continue, or they're going to find somebody else. So far, it has been extremely positive. They are taking orders. They are following our directions. We spent a lot of time discussing with the TNC our own future, because there were people that were under oppression for many years. They're not really aware of what's happening. They see things from the news, but not really discussing it from a people perspective. So I spent a lot of time on that. No, I have no issues whatsoever.
Let's get the businessman's perspective on this. Francis Perrin, do people in the business community, especially in your sector, the energy sector, do they feel as though when they pick up the phone to call Benghazi and speak with the National Transitional Council that they have, that they're speaking with serious people here?
It's a little delicate for them. As you know, oil companies and most generally industrial companies are very cautious as far as political issues are concerned, because they worked for many years, and for some of them for decades, with the Gaddafi government. So they are very cautious. There has certainly been some contacts in a very discreet way and through their respective ministries of foreign affairs, etc. But really, as far as of today, for the industry, they are waiting in order to see what will happen, especially in terms of political stability and in terms of security. Before the beginning of the conflict, there were dozens of oil companies, foreign oil companies working in Libya. And of course, many of them want to return as soon as possible. But first, the security issue is paramount. If this issue is solved in a rather satisfactory way, every oil company working in Libya before February, March 2011 will return, because Libya is, of course, a country with a very important oil potential, with a very significant gas potential. It remains a rather underexplored country, so there are some good probability for future oil and gas discoveries. Libyan crude is a very high-quality crude, which is very sought after by refineries throughout the world. So the world oil industry is awaiting, but they are
They're waiting on the
news.
security situation.
Yes, political and security issues must be solved first.
All right. The issue of who's the right person to talk to and who represents what is central to all this. One of the more controversial figures is a certain Abdel Hakim Belhaj, the head of military operations for Tripoli. He's a former jihadist who trained in Afghanistan and has been on a CIA wanted list. He spoke to France 24 on Wednesday and promised there's room for everyone in the new Libya.
We want freedom, justice, and equality for our country. We want a place where everyone's rights will be respected. We want a country that aspires to live in honesty. I hope it will happen soon and in a civil way, and that all social groups will respect each other.
Pierre Conessa, your thoughts on this? Has he turned over a new leaf? He's no longer a jihadist?
I think it must be a tragedy for him, because the victory, he had it because of NATO intervention. What does that mean for jihadists? I mean, to get the victory with the help of NATO. I don't believe 1 minute to that kind of speeches. That's not possible, I mean. And what does that mean? I mean, to respect everybody. You can promise it, well, no problem. But in fact, I don't talk about economic problem, but social problem. I mean, how do you implement a real human right, respect, government? I don't believe it.
So what is the future course for somebody like Abdelhakim Belhaj? Probably there because he's somebody who's trained in weapons, unlike most people, and who has friends in the Gulf.
Yes, but is the Gulf dimension important in that case? I don't believe it. I think it's the internal problem of Libya, which means that the several components of this National Transition Committee must respect a kind of balanced system, and which means that every Libyan must be considered as a citizen, not as a member of a tribe or member of a social components. I don't believe the concept of people of Libya. In no countries in the world, I mean, a politician can talk about the people of the country. The people is composed with several parts, several social trends, and etc., etc. And that's very difficult to get a very balanced regime. That's 2 centuries of experience in France.
In 30 seconds or less, Alexis Croo, because we're going to have to go to a break, are you worried when you see the likes of someone like Abdelhakim Belhaj in charge of military operations for Tripoli?
Well, I think there's one crucial distinction which we haven't mentioned, and that is the participation of outside powers. And we haven't spoken about NATO or the Arab League. And there's accusations, for example, as we've seen today, that the accusations within the rebel militias themselves that Qatar, that they're sort of secret agents from Qatar involved that are there to represent Qatari interests. So I think this is something which we've got to watch, and whether or not that will divide future or actually acts as a sort of coherent element.
All right, we're going to pick up on that very point when we come back. Stay with us. The France 24 debate continues.